On September 14th, 2014, I was officially installed as pastor at this church. Many of you were there for that special service. Many of you are still sitting in the same spot you were sitting in that very day. I don't know if you recall, but there was a song that was sung called "Here I Am, Lord." The song was sung towards the end of the service. Now, for the record, it was not a song that I requested. No. But in fact, our speaker, Pastor Carl Richter, requested it. At the time, I was just so happy that I wasn't preaching that service. And he agreed to preach the service that I didn't really notice the song. I said, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. And I didn't really understand the significance of that song. Now, reflecting back, I realized the power of the song's lyrics. The song asks the question, "Who will bear my light to them? Who shall I send?" The chorus answers by saying, "Here am I, Lord. It is I, Lord. I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart." The song is quite thoughtful and appropriate to be sung for an installation. Looking back, I can recall that when I sung that song, I was standing on the front row, surrounded by my other fellow pastor colleagues. And be it that I knew the chorus quite well, I happily joined my voice singing nice, loud, and proud. "Here I am, Lord. It is I, Lord. I will go, Lord, if you lead me." Beyond the song having a nice melody, the lyrics actually imply that we're making a promise to God. We are proudly offering and exclaiming, "Hey God, I'm right here. I'm available. Whatever you need, just say the words and I will do it." Now, after having a couple years of pastoral ministry under my belt, I realize that those words take on quite a different meaning now. I don't know how many years of ministry Ananias had when the Lord gave him that vision. But from our passage this week, we see that Ananias says the same words to God. "Here I am, Lord." He was exclaiming his openness and availability to do God's work. He was implying, "I'm right here, Lord. I am available. Whatever you need, just say the words." I don't know if Ananias was expecting that God was going to take him up on that offer. But God gave him a pretty hard assignment. Go to Straight Street and meet a man named Saul. A man who was known for being against the early Christ followers. A man who was breathing out threats and murders. A man everyone would have definitely wanted to stay away from. A man who we would think God would not use. I like the fact that Ananias was honest. And Ananias questioned God. I think I would have probably done the same thing. I would have probably said, God, did I hear you correctly? Are you sure you said straight street? Are you sure you said Saul of Tarsus? You must have been mistaken. You must have been thinking of someone else. Because Saul is all kinds of bad news. You don't want him in your circle. I think many times in life, like Ananias, we question God. We question where God is going with God's plan. This week has been a difficult one in the life of this church. We have 3 people, I think now 4, whose health is declining. And as a pastor, sitting at their bedside is one of the hardest parts of my job. One of the most exhausting ones, too. At the hospital this week, a young woman whose illness has gravely afflicted her and who's debilitated her body asked me a question. Why has this happened to me? Why has this happened to me? At that moment, looking into her eyes, I was grasping at straws, trying to find the right words. For no nice philosophical or theological answer would do. Instead, I answered her as honest as I could. I said, I don't know why. But what I do know is that God is present and among us. But what I do know is that God never leaves us nor forsakes us. But what I do know is that there is no place that we can go where God is not. And by the end of my conversation, that young woman was smiling from ear to ear. Obviously, the young woman was not smiling because all her answers to her questions, she had all the answers to her questions. But I think she had a sense of joy on her face because she realized that she's not going through it alone. Many times in life we question God like Ananias. We question why God would send us places and to certain people. Like that woman in the hospital this week, we question God and why things happen. But the good news that we have and the good news that we can hold on to is that no matter what, God shows up. God fulfills God's promises. And we do not go through life alone. Amen.